everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast Rise and Tell with Sheekha. Sometimes healing doesn't come from talking, it comes from creating, and it comes from art. In this episode, I had the absolute pleasure and honor of sitting down with this founder of Art as Therapy, Rapinder Kaur. Rapinder talked to me about how art can help process pain, thoughts, how it can help reclaim identity, and how it helps reconnect with ourselves. She not only helped me realize that we need to incorporate art at every stage in our life and be a child again, but she also helped me figure out that resting is okay. Taking some time for yourself, whatever that means for you, is completely okay. I was mesmerized by the concept of art as therapy, and I am sure you are going to be mesmerized by this concept too. Rapinder is a registered psychotherapist and art therapist. She's a clinical supervisor, board member, educator, and sought after public speaker, community organizer, and an experienced facilitator. Although she hates her emails, she believes in the strength of how individual and community empowerment can disrupt systems of oppression. We spoke about distraction, rest, stress. We spoke about lifestyle. We spoke about addiction and pain. And for everything, she explained to me how art as therapy has helped a lot of people, not just children, but adults too. So let's get started. All right. So there we go, everybody. We have with us Rapinder Kaur. Thank you so much, Rapinder, and welcome to our show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Same here. My first question, and I am pretty sure that everybody who's listening or viewing this episode is excited to know, how does creativity help in terms of therapy?
What a fantastic question. Because often when I say that I'm an art therapist, they don't actually know what that is. Some people do, but some people are not familiar. So they will say, what is that? And so I have a question for you, actually. I have a question. When you think of therapy, when you think of a therapy office, what comes to mind?
The usual, the couch and the cozy setting, and something that looks very homely, and a place that makes you comfortable speaking or sharing your vulnerable thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when you look at sort of popular like shows, when they show a therapist, there's always couches in there and a box of tissues and a plant and a lamp and maybe some like psychology books in the background.
Right.
When you come into a creative arts space, when you come into an art therapy office, let's say, or play therapy office or a drama therapy office, what you're going to find is you're going to find all of those things, plus maybe not couches, not white couches, and there's a reason for that. But you're probably going to find lots of art supplies and play materials and materials that could be used by a drama therapist. And almost immediately when you come into a space where there are art materials, there is this sort of sense of joy that is sort of invoked. And there is a sense of playfulness. So we work with children. I have worked with children. I work with adults right now. So even when adults come into this space, there's nothing, with a box of crayons just brings a smile on most people's faces, right? Unless, of course, they had some difficult experiences in their art class. Generally speaking, there's a sense of joyfulness and playfulness that almost immediately is in that space. And so that's just sort of one aspect that it makes, especially children, makes them feel very comfortable when they're coming into that therapy space. Why creativity and therapy? Why is that so useful? Is because I believe that making art, and it isn't that you have to be an artist. It isn't about being good at art or having artistic skill. It's based on this idea that all of us have creativity within us. We all have this creative drive. You notice as soon as a little child is able to start they recognize, oh, wait, I have a hand. Oh, they are ready to do something with that hand. They're ready to move, right? They're ready to explore their world. So creativity is something that is inherent in all of us. We are creative beings by design. It's in our DNA. So I think that's really important for people to understand. And so art therapy gives you first an opportunity to be creative and to exercise that muscle. Right. And then it's this way of accessing information that might not be available to us through verbal means. Because sometimes what we truly feel, especially if we're feeling a lot of pain, especially if we've gone through an experience that has been very difficult, maybe it's an experience we've gone through when we were children, we may not be able to articulate that into words. It may be very difficult to do that, even for people who have a really good grasp of verbal knowledge, or they're able to express themselves verbally. Even for some folks, it can be difficult to do that. And so art becomes this sort of vehicle of expression. It becomes this container for the expression. It becomes a container for the pain, and allows someone to tap into what they're really feeling. And we know this, right? Because we were able to express ourselves. Like, what do we say to people who have had a romantic breakup? They listen to sad songs because it helps them to move through the feelings that they're experiencing. And when there's joyful moments in our lives, whether it's a wedding or a birth, there's always music in those moments. Culturally too, speaking, there's music in all of those moments.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Beautifully put. And you said the right thing there when you said you don't have to be creative to express yourself. So when you were explaining this in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I am the worst at drawing or painting. So how can a person like me be comfortable if I walk into your office and I say, okay, this is my first session. I see a box of crayons, but I suck at drawing. So how would you help me open up if I'm not that creative?
Yeah. So you're right. We're all creative. We may not be artistic. Little children, they have no issues with it. They grab that crayon, right? And then they just make a mark and they make a scribble. And they're not thinking about it, right? They're not thinking, am I doing a good job? Is this what I should be doing? Am I supposed to be doing this? They're not asking any of those questions. They are grabbing that crayon and they are making the mark. So that's the invitation. The invitation is, let's just make a mark. Let's just make a scribble. Let's just draw a line and see what happens. Let's just play. Adults don't often, we almost have to force ourselves to play, right? So play isn't something that's just happening in our everyday. We're so focused on being productive and getting things done, which is useful, but there is that sort of lack of creativity and play. And so for someone who is hesitant, we will design directives and ideas that are going to make you feel comfortable, right? It's sort of going to allow you to just play and try things out and experiment and see what happens. And then we're really curious about, as you're doing that, what's coming up for you.
Got it. Okay. So this is interesting. But my question to you, Rapinder, would be, has there been a situation where you really had to force, I know you've been dealing with children and now you're dealing with adults too, but has there been a situation where someone's very hesitant to pick up or be creative or, or even open up or share? How does that process look through, and how does art as therapy help someone who's very strong-willed like that, who doesn't want to open up?
Yeah, for sure. That I've definitely had an experience of that. I mean, when I started my career, I was working with children that were part of the child welfare system. So what that means is that they were taken away from their families, because there was, abuse and neglect, or there was sort of, the families didn't have the capacity to be able to take care of their children, for various different reasons, right? It wasn't their fault that there was systemic issues of why, these children were not able to stay with their families. And so they were living in a group home, in a residential home, and I was working there as an art therapist. So I was inviting them to participate in the art therapy session, because we felt that they needed that support. And they didn't even want to come in the room. And if they did come into the room, they didn't want to sit down. And if they did sit down, they didn't want to engage in the art. And the reason for that was because they didn't feel safe. There wasn't that emotion, there wasn't that sort of nervous system safety. They didn't trust adults. They had been let down by adults, many, many different adults in their lives. And so the last thing that they wanted to do was anything. And also that they didn't have the confidence in themselves that they could be creative, right? That they could do something, that they could make something. And so emotional safety is almost the relationship. And so most therapists will say this. They'll say, regardless of what modality that you use, the first step is always to ensure that the person that you're working with feels safe in the therapy space. Like that is the ultimate goal, first and foremost, is that relationship. So that's a key component of any therapy, but certainly is the key component of art therapy, is that once we've established that sense of safety, and that comes from the therapist being consistent, the therapist being present, the therapist being open, the therapist being curious. And in art therapy, it's really useful because there are other types of therapy where folks might say, okay, if you don't want to come, then that's it. We're going to end the session. We're not going to, we're going to end this appointment. And until you're ready, we're not going to start this.
Right.
From an art therapy perspective, we're really conscious about what else is happening for the client and really meeting the client where they're at. So if there is that resistance, we're going to be very curious about why are they resistant? What does that mean? And really being able to sort of show up for that client and say, we're here. And you don't have to do anything in order for you and I to be in this space together, right? So we're really co-creating a space that works for them, as opposed to me as the therapist sort of asserting my power and privilege in that space and saying, nope, you have to come and you have to do, right? Like, so it really isn't about that, right? And so it's a very gentle approach. It's a very friendly approach. It's a welcoming approach. It's really saying, let's meet you where you're at.
Oh, nice. That is so fun. It sounds so much fun, and it's so interesting to know this. I had no idea before this that art was even used as therapy, or, that it could even help. I know usually it's journaling and, it's okay, note down your feelings or write it down. But art, it's, very interesting. So let's pivot a little bit, Rapinder. I really want to know, what was the driving force behind art as therapy, and what made you even start this?
Yeah. So as I said, I was working in that residential group home, and I found myself sort of in a space where the children that we were working with, they were not necessarily being treated with, like, they weren't seen as, they weren't given sort of the respect that they deserve, right? Like, they weren't given this sort of idea that they have autonomy, that they have choice, that they are able to have a say in the care that they were receiving at this group home. And it also felt like we weren't sort of really understanding the complex and nuanced reasons why an individual was in the group home in the first place. And we weren't really we were working with the children, but we weren't really involving the families. We weren't looking at their care from a holistic perspective. What we were seeing was that they were coming with a laundry list of diagnoses. And then they were, it was like, they now need treatment and they now need to be fixed, and we need them to behave. And it sort of felt almost like it was sort of like this kind of like prison system type of vibe, right? Like, as opposed to it being a space that was nurturing and kind and caring. And so when that place closed down, and I knew that I wanted to open up my own practice, but, it was a little bit sooner perhaps because it closed down abruptly. And when I was imagining what kind of place I wanted to work in, and when I was imagining the kind of place that I wanted my clients to be in, I was imagining a sort of a place that was really comfortable, a place that was really welcoming, a place that was joyful, a place that was saying, when you come into this place, you just get to be who you are. You don't have to hide parts of yourself. You don't have to, pretend to be anyone else. Like, you get to show up just the way that you are. And if you're coming in and you are really upset and you don't want to be there, and maybe you're throwing a bowl at me, that is okay. right? That is absolutely okay, because your feelings are valid. They're incredibly valid. And we're here to provide you with the support. We're here to provide you with care. And much of the way that the practice was set up. So I really wanted it to be a place where I wanted to be. Like,
Right.
I wanted to feel good being in the space. I wanted it to be aesthetically beautiful. I wanted it to be comfortable. I wanted it to be a place that where I'd be excited about going every single day. And so, when we set that, when we want to put the space together, I have to say that the space, is very much grounded in sort of my own kind of cultural, religious kind of background. And so, in those sort of, it's sort of guided, like the guiding philosophy behind artist therapy is very much grounded in kind of what I knew growing up, which is this sort of idea of like Punjabi radical hospitality, which is, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are coming to our house, you are treated like you're the divine, right? You're treated with so much respect, and you're treated with so much love. And that's not something that we often talk about when we're talking about business, or we're talking about a service. We're not saying that we're providing love and care here. But that's what you do, right? If you're Punjabi, whether you want to eat or not, whether you have a good relationship with food, whether you have a good relationship with food or not, you are going to be fed, right? Yes. So that's first and foremost. And that's a Sikh ideal too. You go to a Gurdwara, there's langar. Yeah. So there's always going to be that nurturance and care through food. So much of what we do at artist therapy is very much grounded in sort of those principles of care, nurturance, respect, and recognizing the client, the person that we're working with, as sovereign, as somebody who has the power and the capacity to manage whatever it is that they're going through. And then looking at it from a bigger perspective of saying, well, what are the issues that we have in society? Because oftentimes what we do is we sort of vilify the person who we say, you know what, if you have anxiety and depression, it's a personal failure. And what we're saying, no, let's put this in a broader context, because, if you're stressed and you're depressed and you're anxious, is it because there's something wrong with you? Or is it because you're suffering because of you're going through food insecurity or poverty, or you can't get a job because of the system because of what's happening in our economic environment right now? And is that really a failing of yours, or is this a failing, is this a more collective failing, right? So it's really looking at it from a much wider perspective.
Wow, that is so inspiring. Like, I love how you added the culture part to it, because that was actually one of the questions that I had. How does culture play a role in what you did and the kind of people that you get to the clinic or, to the office? And I think you've already answered it, and that's just on point. And I'm so proud, and I'm so literally proud of everything that you just said, Rapinder, because one, you didn't just pick up a problem and found a solution for it, but second, you actively, the point that you said, you wanted to create a space where you felt like you want to enjoy this every single day. That's you trying to find something that you love and pouring everything that you've gone into it. And I think that's just wonderful. I feel like that's the problem these days, where people will say, oh, yes, I want this business. I want that. I want to start this. I want to do that. But then after a while, they don't know what they love, or they don't know what excites them and what kind of space they want. And so, oh, yeah, I don't like it anymore. It's routine and it's this. But I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that how, you hit on the essential, I don't want to say problems, but issues that 90% of children and adults face or are facing now and have been facing for the last, 10 years at least that I have known. And I hear all these issues and personally have also gone through some of them. So it's just amazing and commendable for everything that you've told about your work. I think is really awesome, Rapinder. So I'm going to ask you this. And again, you don't have to answer this, but has there been any situation or an instance where you're like, oh my God, this is so difficult. I don't know if you're ready to do this. Was there an instance like that? And if yes, how did you handle it?
Mm. Oh my gosh, as a small practice owner, as somebody who owns a practice, a small business, for sure, there's always challenges. Every day there is a challenge, especially because you know, as a small, as a practice owner, you're wearing so many different, in my case, turbans or different hats, and you know, so you're marketing your business, your practice, you're marketing it, you're actually providing the service itself. You know, I'm supervising the other team members that work with me. You know, there's so many aspects that you're doing. And you're cleaning up too, right? Like, so you're doing all of the things. And I think that as the practice then gets, you know, so it's now grown, it's sort of 15 years old, 16 years old. And as it's sort of grown through the stages, it started off just by myself. And now we have a team and we have multiple locations. And when you do that, there's always going to be some sort of challenge. And I think going back to sort of my sort of cultural kind of understanding, there's this concept of Jadbikala, which is this idea of rising optimism. And it's just really this sort of wonderful, like kind of like psychological concept that really talks about this idea that even when things are difficult,
right,
even when things are difficult, we can still be optimistic. We can still be hopeful. And that hopefulness comes from this idea that, again, I'm sovereign and that I have this innate creativity, and I can use my creativity to find a solution to my problem. And we utilize that not only for myself as I'm, you know, running the practice, but also for our clients when they come into our space. I think that the thing that we're doing is we're trying to help folks tap into what brings them joy. So what is in the face of adversity, in the face of sometimes the most incredible pain, so incredible that people are, you know, like in pure despair and hopelessness, right? Like they're like, I don't know how I'm going to manage this. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do life even. They're questioning their own existential, you know, their own existence.
Right.
In that moment, what we're doing is we're saying, you know what, first of all, you can still experience joy. That is the antidote for any challenge. And then the other is that you have this capacity to find a way out of this, or a way forward, or imagine a different way. And that's where the art becomes so powerful, because it allows you to look at different perspectives. It allows you to look at things from a very different way. And so if I'm coming in and I'm saying, look, I think I failed, you know, I think that I'm a terrible parent. I don't think I can, I'm not doing well at my job. I can't keep my house clean. You know, I'm always overwhelmed. And so we start to look at that from a different perspective, and we say, can we talk about what you are doing? And that's incredibly powerful. Look at so we're reminding people of their power, and we're reminding people of their capacity for joy. And I think that that's what makes this work so meaningful. And yeah, so I definitely think there's always going to be a challenge. Like that's just, we know that, right?
Yeah.
And we live in challenging times right now. We've never before have we lived in so much darkness, right? Yeah. And yeah, I think that there is light. There is definitely light. And when we connect with our creativity and our inner power, we can find a path forward, and trying to find it together, right? So we're not doing that. I'm not doing this by myself. So often the question I ask of my clients, especially the adults, is, who's in your corner, right? Yeah. Who is in your corner? Who can you connect with that aligns with your vision? And who can help you get there? Because we can't do this by ourselves. Our problems are way too big, right? We created these problems together. Now we can solve them together too.
Yes.
Right. So
100% correct. And I agree to everything that you just said. And I love the fact that you're making people realize that, wait, take a step back. And instead of complaining what you're not doing, see at how many things you're doing, because not everyone is capable. One, second, not everyone has that much energy and, all that to do all those tasks. And I see moms, especially this generation moms, they have so much to juggle, but they have this, and even dads for that matter. I feel like everyone has this certain set of, I don't know where that rule book is or who provided it, but it's like, oh, okay, you have to be responsible. You have to get all of this done and also make sure that you're healthy and fit and, everything, but also take care of all these 100 different things on your to-do list. And oftentimes I feel like when we measure to that list that I don't know who created, you're like, oh my God, I think I'm failing because, okay, I've got like 5 things done out of this list, but not the other 90 things are impossible. And I love how you're making people think that, okay, go back and see that you at least managed to do those 5 things and that you're not failing, but you can get there and you're doing it together. I think that says a lot about you. So with that, I'm going to ask you, Rapinder, how do you manage to keep your cup full with everything that's going around you?
Oh my gosh, I was going to say that we are our worst critic, right? We are so critical of ourselves, and that whoever made that rule book, they made it for a very small group of people. They did not, it doesn't, so most people will never measure up to that, way of being. And what I love about art therapy is it's a little rebellious, right? It's actually, like, I would say art therapy is a form of activism in some respects, because what we're saying is, who made the rule book? And we're going to tear up that rule book, or we're going to just make our own, right? Like, and you literally can start doing those things within a therapy session. You can get a book and make your own book, right? So, and you can put in it different ways of knowing. You can put in it ancestral knowledge. You can put in it cultural knowledge. You can put in, embodied knowledge of like what you feel inside your own body. So sometimes, we rationalize and we say, okay, yeah, this is how I need to be doing things, and I'm not doing it enough, and I should be doing something. But your body is actually saying, slow down, right? Because we're feeling so much in our bodies. And so, so I think paying attention to different ways of knowing is really important. So I love that about art therapy, because we can be very like, we can really challenge the status quo, and we can say, well, how do you imagine? And so when you say, how do I keep my cup full? Oh my gosh, I think I'm just as guilty as any of the people that I work with. I feel like I haven't done enough, and I have to keep reframing for myself. I actually have done enough today. Yes. Right. So I'm a child of an immigrant, and my immigrant mother was always working, always constantly doing something, even to this day, she doesn't stop. And I think that I'm recognizing that I can actually rest. And so reframing is one, and reminding myself, preaching what I'm sharing with my clients, I'm actually, trying to apply to myself. And then secondly, I think what actually keeps my cup full more than anything is when I get to sit in a space with a client, and I get to sit across from them, and I get to pay attention to them for 50 minutes or an hour. And my phone is off. I am not checking any emails, thank goodness. And I just get to be present. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not fixing the problem. I am not solving the problem. That's not my job. My job is to be present. And so when I'm present, and then 2 people are together in that presence, and then I sit and hold the space, and we make space for whatever is on their mind, whatever pain they're experiencing, whatever they're feeling. Right. And we make space for that, and we witness that pain. Right. And then what happens is that there's this thing that happens throughout the session. But like, as you go through the session, there's this pain that sort of comes out, and we hold it, and we care for it, and we nurture it. And then we remind ourselves of the client's power. And then we get to this moment where we feel a little bit more hopeful, where we feel like there's a pathway forward, where we recognize their power. Right. And that whole process is so incredible. It is the most incredible thing. And it's my favorite thing in the world. Like, because you have to sit through you have to sometimes sit through some really difficult emotions. Yes. And it's not easy, but when you're able to move through it together, it's almost joyful at the end. And I love that. And I sometimes think my clients pay me. I'm like, I should be paying them, because really, they remind me of resilience. They remind me of the resilience of the human spirit. They remind me of what's beautiful in our world. They remind me that there is hope. And so I never leave a session feeling like, I actually feel, I feel inspired every single time I leave a therapy session. And in a world where we're so disconnected from one another, where we're so fragmented, where, we're so distracted, not even disconnected. I think that we are connected, but our attention is divided. Our attention is taken away by different things. And social media happens to be one of them. My email inbox is definitely one of them. All right. But when I get to just pay attention, because when we pay attention, we understand. And when we understand, we connect. And when we connect, right, like we start to care more for other people. And I think that's what we're actually meant to be doing as humans. That actually fills our cup when we care for other people. And so, yeah, I think that's it. And so as someone who's a caregiver, in order to keep my cup full, I need to make sure that I'm also receiving that care. But yeah, I love my job. I have nothing else to say. Like the business side of it, it's okay. But the human side of it, oh my gosh, it's the most incredible thing ever.
Yeah, it shows. It shows how motivated and how driven you are and how much you love what you do, Rapinder. It is so obvious. And I think anybody who's coming to artist therapy, I'm pretty sure, would be grateful because there's someone like you behind it who literally loves every single part of it and has a reason and that drive to make this work. I think that's just awesome. The only other thing that I wanted to ask is, you mentioned about distractions, especially now, and you brought up a very good point. Social media is one of it. But in terms of, and you also mentioned, how everyone needs to take a step back and be like, okay, you realized it, that it's okay for you to rest. I am kind of, I can argue both for and against that particular thing, because I've been reading so much and also experiencing a lot of it. If there's a hard day, or if the 9 to 5 is like very hectic and it was a really bad day at work, I just want to rot on the couch for that evening and not do anything. Like no workout, no cooking, no cleaning, nothing. And in my mind, for some reason, I've termed that as self-care and as rest. But on the other hand, I'm also that motivated, driven individual who wants, who has like 50 things on a to-do list and who wants to tick everyone off of the list. And I'm like, oh my God, I wasted this entire evening. I could have done 10 different things, but I was on the couch rotting and I'm scrolling for no reason. But even when I'm scrolling, I'm seeing clips of videos and of people who are saying, oh my God, stop wasting your evenings, do something about it. And so I'm like, okay, what do you call, like, define what would be proper rest when you're actually burnt out and not just, having a bad day at work, but like when you're really burnt out and your work is bad, you're like, okay, you've had enough. Define what rest would look like for you.
You're picking up so many great points. Yeah, my goodness. I think this is the first thing that comes to mind is first of all, I think that rule book you were talking about earlier is coming into play here, isn't it? Because the companies on social media, they're designed to sell things to us, right? So they are going to sell products to us, right? And they're also going to say, you need to exercise more, you need to eat more, and you said it earlier too, that like there is a incredible amount of pressure on people these days of sort of really like leveling up all the time.
Yeah.
And, and doing really, I public speak. So I often on Instagram get, like adverts for improve your public speaking skills and become an even better leader than you already are. So we're constantly being bombarded with this information. And I think, so what's important to recognize is where's this message, that this thought inside my brain, this narrative inside my brain that says, I've just wasted my evening. Where does that come from? Number one. Number two is having a little bit of self-compassion and saying, like, would you really say if you were talking to your friend and your friend was on the couch and your friend had no energy other than to scroll, what would you say to your friend?
It's fine. Totally fine. You deserve it.
You've had a really difficult day. Yeah. That was a really difficult day. And you would not vilify your friend. You would not say to your friend, you're just wasting your time, And so I think that it's really important to ask the question, like, why is it that I'm lying on the couch and why is it that I don't have the energy? And then ask yourself the question, what do I need? Right?
Yes.
And I think that that's what rest is. Rest is when you answer the question, what do I need? So you're saying, you know what? I've had such a day that I cannot do anything other than lie down.
Right.
So so that is rest, right? And I think there's lots of different forms of rest, and you're going to need it at different times. But ultimately, the kind of rest that is restorative is always, Dr. Dan Siegel has like this nice little kind of resource that's called the 7 healthy ways to keep a healthy brain, or something like that. There's a sort of a healthy platter or something, and in that he talks about that we need downtime, we need time in, so we need time to reflect.
Right.
We need playtime, rest time, and we need productive time. So we need all of those things. And I think that you as an individual can then decide how much. So some people might need more downtime than other people. Some people may need more reflecting time than other people. I think as a society, we're probably getting a lot less time in. Yeah. We're getting a lot less time to actually reflect on our emotions because we're constantly consuming content, right? That's so correct. Right. And so that's where going out in nature is useful. That's where, in-person meeting, in-person playing together, being together is usually the most restorative. And then rest sometimes is as simple as like, I'm getting enough sleep. I'm drinking enough water. I'm getting enough nutrition. So when folks come in and say, I feel depressed, my first questions are, how much sleep are you getting? How much water did you drink today? Did you even eat anything today? What does your nutrition look like? A good night's rest, if you can get it, because I know some people really struggle with sleep and I really feel for them. But if you can get a good night's rest, that's going to solve 80% of your problems. It's like, don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. It's like, don't make a big decision if you're tired, right? Like, so, yeah. So it's really asking yourself that question, what do I need? And your body will tell you, your body will say, sit down. Or your body will say, give me some water. If you pay attention to what's going on in our bodies, or your body will say, I need a walk. Or your body will say, I need to sleep. Right. So,
yeah. Oh my God. You just touched like the most debatable thing right there when you said that we don't get enough time to rest because of all these distractions and social media and phone. And I feel like that's a big problem because youngsters, adults, children, everyone are in front of different sizes of screen all throughout their day. They start with the phone, move to the laptop, then to the TV, back to the phone. And again, that's just going on and on. I'm like, not enough people are bored. When I was talking about this to my colleagues, and we were talking about what different kinds of vacations people on the team like to take. And I said, I will pay to go to a place that doesn't have Wi-Fi, no network, no TV, nothing. And it's just woods, nature, and me, and maybe a little food. And they're like, is something wrong with you? I'm like, I think something's wrong with you, because why would you want to be distracted and again bombarded with all these things that are, not helping you focus on what's right for you, or helping you even give you a minute to think, okay, what's going on with me? What's going on with my life? And yeah, so you're absolutely right. It feels like I got a mini therapy session done here. So thank you so much for that, Rapinder. I love it. I love every point that you made. And it's just crazy the times that we're living in. And we know that these things are taking us away from our potential or our feelings, our, relationships or whatever, but still it's like this weird little addiction that everyone has at like different levels with different screens. And it's
not even a weird addiction. It is an addiction. I mean, when you look at what the researchers are saying, they're saying it is addictive. This technology is addictive, and sometimes we're not moving between the 3 screens. We have all 3 of the screens, right, or more, and so it is harmful. And I think that we need to find ways to be able to. It's in our lives and it's useful. I mean, we're having this wonderful conversation today because of technology. So by no means am I saying you need to ban these things, but I think we do need to critically think, how are we using them? I do think that we're going to look back on this time and say, we were mad. It was insane what we were doing, right? It's sort of like how we feel about cigarettes now is how we're going to feel about social media and technology, especially for children and growing minds. And so, I do think that it's incredibly harmful, and we do need to think about different ways of using it so we're able to benefit from it. And the other point is that our optimization or reaching our potential, that is inherent, that also is programmed within us, like within our DNA. I think that what we need to ask is, do we have the right kinds of conditions to allow that to just unfold on its own? Sometimes we don't need to work that hard, right? Yeah. We really don't. And I think, it's because we receive these messages of how we should be that we're kind of working against our potential. And what we need to be asking is, that, what really does resonate for me, and really allowing people to connect with that resonance and to connect to what brings them joy, so that they are going to grow. You can't, it's like a garden. If you you do have to put in the work. I'm not saying that you're not going to be putting in the work. You're definitely going to be putting in the work. Yeah. You're going to be tending to your garden. You're going to be ensuring you're taking the weeds out. You're fertilizing it, watering it. But then the blooming that happens on its own. And if you notice people's gardens who are consistently doing the work, they're not overworking. They're just consistently doing the work. Yeah. Right. Not doing 60-hour weeks, right? Yeah. They're not in their garden for 60 hours, but they are just consistently showing up in their garden and tending to their garden. And you notice these houses when you're on a walk in your neighborhood and you're like, oh my gosh, this garden's so beautiful, right? Yeah. And it's because of that consistency of showing up. Yeah. Right. And then that's what allows that garden from year to year to year to just keep blooming and getting more and more beautiful. And humans are like that too. So can we create the conditions where we're caring for each other, tending to each other, supporting one another, creating the right kind of conditions for our children, for ourselves, for our families, for our elders, and then just let the blooming happen on its own, right? We don't have to be responsible for everything. So yeah.
True. Wonderful points, Rapinder. Before we end the show, are there any last thoughts or suggestions that you would want to provide our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I always say, if you're not interested in the arts, or you're sort of hesitant with the arts, get into the arts. Get yourself, I will argue that any kind of, I do a lot of corporate workshops where I take art materials into corporate settings. And these are folks who are very analytical or very linear thinking. And they look at the materials and I'm like, I can't do this. And they're very incredibly talented people. Right. And it's so amazing to see teams grow and connect when they are engaging in the process of making something, when they're being creative. So I would argue that if you are a team, bring art materials to your boardroom tables, to your meeting tables, have them available, let people doodle. If that's, let them make a mark, have it at your desk. If you have one of those jobs, and at home, bring in art materials, just have fun with them. Even if you don't have kids, that's fine. If you have kids, even more reason to play. So my last message to everybody would be, find moments to play in your everyday, and art can be really fun.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Rapinder. Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving us those valuable tips. I am pretty sure everyone would get something out of this, and I'm pretty sure that I will start playing more and getting more art material in the house starting today. So thank you for that. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, Rapinder.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you creating this space and having this conversation. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope this episode resonated with some of you, and I hope you've learned something out of this episode. Subscribe to learn more and to gain a lot more inspiration and motivation from other guests on our show. As always, keep growing, keep glowing, and be yourself. This is Sheekha Singh signing off. Bye.